In this episode, you'll discover what happens when your child's greatest beginning quietly asks you to let go, and what becomes possible when you do. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. This is a different kind of episode. No frameworks today, no research citations, no 5 steps to anything. It's just me being honest with you about something I'm living right now, because I think you might be living a same version of it too. Stay with me to the end, because the place I land might just be exactly where you need to land today too. Welcome back to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. It's your coach, Kavita. By the time you hear this episode, I will be at my son's wedding. I'm recording this before I leave because I know that if I waited until after, the words would be different. The emotion would be different. And I wanted to give you the before. The place of not knowing yet how it will feel when I actually stand in that room and watch him become a husband. Because the before has surprised me. And I think the surprise is worth talking about. I have been unexpectedly emotional in the weeks leading up to this wedding, and not in a complicated way, not conflict or fear, but in a deeply quiet way that I wasn't prepared for. Memories have been surfacing on their own. Moments from his childhood. Small, ordinary things. A particular look on his face when he was 7 years old, the way he used to follow me around in the kitchen, the conversations we had when he was figuring out who he was going to become. And these memories are making me tearful, if I'm honest. Even though what is happening is joyful, even though I am so proud of him and so happy for him that I can barely contain it. Both things are true and can be true at the same time. I have been sitting with this contrast, the joy and the sadness, living in the same moment, and I really have been trying to understand it. And I'll share what I've learned here with you. Susan David, the Harvard psychologist who wrote Emotional Agility, has a concept that I keep coming back to. She calls it the tyranny of positivity. It's a cultural pressure we all feel to divide our emotions into good ones and bad ones. Joy is good, grief is bad, and to suppress anything that doesn't fit the occasion. A wedding is a happy occasion, so you feel the happiness. And anything else that surfaces, the sadness, the quiet grief, the sense of something ending, you push down because it feels wrong to feel it, out of place, or ungrateful even. But David's research shows that suppressing those emotions doesn't make them disappear. What it actually does is it cuts us off from the information that they're carrying. Because in her framework, emotions are data. Every emotion, including the uncomfortable ones, are telling you something true. And the sadness I've been feeling isn't a sign that something is wrong with this occasion. It's a sign of how much it actually matters. The grief is in direct proportion to the love. What am I losing? I'd have to be honest with myself about this because the honest answer is not what I had expected. I think I am grieving his dependency on me. When they're young, they follow you around, they look up to you, they need you for everything, for comfort, for guidance, for the answer to every question. And even as they grow, even as they become more independent, there's still a particular way they need you that is specific to being a parent and a child. That feeling of being needed, really needed, in that particular way, is something I didn't realize I had attached to until it started changing. And now, my son has someone else to look after him, someone he will look after in return. The way she looks at him and he at her, it's its own world. And it should be. That is exactly how it should be. But the shift from being the central relationship in his life to something different, not lesser, but different, that requires its own adjustment. William Bridges, whose work on transitions I come back to again and again in my coaching, writes that every transition begins not with a new beginning, but with an ending. And within that ending, he identifies something he calls disidentification. The experience of losing a sense of yourself when a role that has defined you begins to change. Not the role itself, but the identity you had built around it. I have known myself in part as my son's mother, the particular version of his mother he needed in each season of his life, the protector and the guide, the person he came to first. And that version of me is changing. Bridges says that this disidentification is one of the most disorienting parts of any transition. Precisely because we don't always see it coming. We think we know what we're losing, a job, a relationship, a season of life, but what we're actually losing is a piece of how we knew ourselves. And then he says, after the ending comes what he calls the neutral zone, the in-between phase, the place where the old identity has loosened and the new one hasn't yet formed. He describes it as uncomfortable, and it is, but he also calls it the seedbed for new beginnings. Because it's in the neutral zone, that quiet, uncertain space, that the most important inner work actually happens. The realignments, the slow emergence of who you are becoming. I am in the neutral zone right now, and I know you may be too. And I'm trying to trust that, just like you may be too. There's something else I want to tell you, something I've been watching from a small, grateful distance. When I see my son with his partner, I see a lightness in him I've never seen before. A freedom, a joy that is not performed, not achieved, not earned. It just is. He is happier in a way that has nothing to do with accomplishments and everything to do with being deeply, quietly known by another person. And watching that, watching your child be loved in a way that has nothing to do with you, is one of the most extraordinary things a parent can witness. It does not diminish what we have. It completes something. Van Gennep, who spent decades studying how humans move through the great passages of life, noticed something that I find myself thinking about right now. That when someone crosses a threshold, everyone who loves them crosses something too. My son is crossing his, and I am crossing mine. The mother I have been, the one he needed to become who he is separating from the relationship we now get to build. I am in the liminal space right now, the in-between, where the old identity has loosened and the new one hasn't fully formed. And what comes next is something I'm genuinely curious about. Not afraid of, but curious. And I also want to tell you something that isn't about my son at all. Something that is just about me, because I think you will resonate with it. I'm turning 60 in August. My son is getting married in May, and I'm turning 60 in August. 2 passages in the same season. And what I want to tell you, what I am living my way into believing, is that I am more excited about this decade than I have been about any decade before it. I have seen so much growth in my 50s, so much becoming. And if my 50s taught me that much, I can't imagine what my 60s hold. Grandchildren eventually, a reignited relationship with my husband now that we have more space and time for each other. Good health, which I'm committed to, seeing the world, growing this business in ways I haven't yet allowed myself to fully imagine, writing a book, or several. All of these things are not fantasies. They are the next chapter, and it is opening. Watching my son step fully into his life has given me something. Not a permission slip exactly. I don't need one, but an opening. A kind of quiet confirmation that the season of my life that was defined primarily by raising him is moving into something new. And that something new is not a loss, it's freeing. In a way, it's exactly what I tell my clients. Every transition involves something ending so something else can begin. The thing I am releasing, that particular version of being needed, of being his primary person, is making room. Room for who he is becoming, and room for who I am becoming in this next chapter. I want to bring this back to you now because this is a podcast about your transition, not mine. But I think that's exactly why I wanted to share it, because I think many of you are navigating your own version of this. Maybe it's a child's wedding. Maybe it's a child leaving home. Maybe it's a milestone birthday arriving in the same season as some other passage you weren't expecting. Maybe it's watching someone you love step into their life and feeling, alongside your joy, a quiet and unnamed grief. Here's what I want you to know. That grief is real. It doesn't need to be explained away or rushed through. Susan David said that the path to emotional agility isn't the absence of difficult feelings, it's the willingness to make room for all of them. You don't have to resolve the grief. You don't have to choose between the joy and the sadness. You just have to stop treating one of them as wrong. And then, when you're ready, when you've let the ending be an ending, the question that has been waiting for you underneath all of it will become clear. William Bridges offers 2 questions he gives to people navigating transitions, and I just love them. The first is this: what is it time to let go of in my own life right now? And the second, the one I keep coming back to, is this: what is standing backstage in the wings of my life, waiting to make its entrance? That second question is where I live right now, and I think it might be where you live too. There's another question that Mary Oliver asks in one of her most beloved poems, and that is this: what will you do with your one wild and precious life? I've heard that question 100 times, but standing in this particular milestone, watching my son step into his, it landed differently. Not as pressure, not as urgency, but as an invitation. A gentle invitation to stop waiting for the right moment and start asking what this season is asking of me. So these questions: what is standing backstage in the wings of my life, waiting to make its entrance? And what will you do with your one wild and precious life? Are the ones I'm sitting with today. And these are the same ones I'm leaving with you today. My answer is this: where do I fly next? If this episode has brought something up for you, if there is a milestone in your life, past or present, that you've been sitting with and haven't quite known how to move through it, I would love to have a conversation with you. Just the two of us, figuring out together what this season is asking of you and what becomes possible when you stop waiting and start answering. The link to book the call is in the show notes. And remember, my friend, you get to decide what comes next. So say it with me and say it with confidence. It's my time now.